We are live. Welcome back to the eSellerCafe News Roundup. My name is Dave. I'm also joined today by Richard. How are you doing, Mr. Meltner?
I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You must. Are you getting homesick again? You're not in an airport. It's a bit weird for you.
Yeah, I got 2 Mondays in a row. I'll be home. Although I'm not sure I'm gonna have a home left after this weekend.
Well, that is obviously one of the touching points of the news this week. Yeah. It looks like America may not have had its quite finished with its dose of the old water treatment. So quickly, I'm going to do a rundown of the news that we're going to be covering today, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it. So very quickly, the top story of this week, which we cannot ignore, is obviously the horrendous effects that Hurricane Harvey has had on Texas and Houston specifically. We will be talking about that and the effects of that on e-commerce businesses, as well as the wider ramifications as well. And again, I was just talking to Richard before we hit live. There's talks of Hurricane Irma as well. I'm sure, Richard, you've been looking at that. That is now looking like it may hit landfall again in America. We're not quite sure where yet. It's still out at sea, but there's it could be. Hopefully, it will sod off in another direction. But yeah, that's what we'll be talking about as the main point today. Then we're going to have a look at eBay Motors, which adds online repair manuals, parts and accessories. We've got the market opportunity seen in Chinese men's grooming. Bit of a weird one for you, but let's say we don't give you a good wide spread of the news going on around the world. Etsy introducing new listing pages and the Labor Day sale. Of course, today is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to all you Americans watching. We have ARCore, the new augmented reality experience for Android. A touch on that as well. I'll talk about more about ARKit in a moment as well, which is the Apple version. We've got new AI technology from Huawei. I love that name, Huawei, great word. For smartphones, which could advance e-commerce. Now, again, Huawei is doing very exciting things. They're not a household name for many, but I do expect that to change in the next 6 to 12 months. They're doing very exciting things. A good friend of mine is actually an ambassador for Huawei, and he's shown me, like, I think it was the P9 that he went to, like, the releasing of, and this new fancy camera that they're doing. They really do look after him very well, but they're apparently a fantastic company to work with as well. eBay updating the contact and links policy for listings in the UK. I'll be telling you a little bit more about that and what you really should be doing in order to make sure you don't get the slap on the wrist from eBay. And we've got PayPal launches new 2% cashback MasterCard, which again is a very interesting one. It could be very worthwhile if you do make a lot of purchases on those sorts of cashback cards. This week, we have also had a couple of guest posts, which is fantastic as well. We've had Ben Whitaker, who is the director at B-Stock Solutions, talking about leveraging B2B liquidation marketplace for returns or slow-moving stock. So again, great piece there from Ben. And also we had a guest post from Victoria Green, who is a marketing consultant, freelance writer, e-commerce expert from Chicago. And she did a piece about selling without borders and how to grow e-commerce sales internationally. Great piece from Victoria as well there. But I think with that said, we really need to, how do you want to do this? Do you want to kick off with the big story, or do you want to leave the big story till last?
Leave it to last.
We'll leave it till last. Okay.
We'll start off with my shopping trip to Whole Foods.
Yes, let's do that. How was it? How was the new Amazon Whole Foods?
Well, it was pretty much not a whole lot of new. Yeah, there was. I didn't get to go on Monday because I was still, delayed through my travels. Shocking.
Yeah, you had to leave us earlier last Monday, didn't you?
Yeah, it's getting really amazing. So by the time I got home, I was like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow morning, which is Tuesday. So I decided on Tuesday last week to go to Whole Foods and check out, see what's going on, because, I read all these stories. Oh, they're slashing prices on major food staples, and walked in there, and yes, I saw some tags. And if you look in the store, you'll see a picture I took of a tag that shows Amazon is included in that, and it's like 50 cents or $1 less for that particular item. But it isn't the walking through the store, it wasn't just like everything was lowered. That's just not the case. And especially what surprised me is that some of the items where they have high profit in, such as maybe the fresh food sections, such as the prepared food section, that, they didn't do anything there with some promotion to get people in to try that, and that might be still coming. I'm not, but as far as the rollout is concerned, there was a lot of hype about lower prices. And clearly there were some things that were more in line with what you would find here where I live. Publix is probably the largest supermarket chain, but if Safeway, Kroger, all those others, more in line with that level supermarket. They're not, Whole Foods is not going to, stoop to the level of Aldi or even maybe Walmart to some extent on their private label things. So, those are kind of the lower end on the food market, supermarket chain. But Whole Foods does have competitors here in Florida. Fresh Market is one of its competitors. And when you compare the two, they've always been very similar. So maybe they can gain some of that business by selecting certain items to bring it lower, but then still have that higher end that Whole Foods is known for. And to be perfectly honest, when I walked in, the place was busy. It's always busy. The parking lot is always busy, with the exception of the two stalls for the electric vehicle charging. No one here in Florida seems to drive. But the biggest thing was that my particular Whole Foods actually had Amazon lockers installed, and that was when it was released. The PR piece from Amazon said some of the stores would see the lockers and some of the stores would see Echoes displays. I did not see any Echo displays, but I've seen pictures of Echo displays, so we know that they have put them out there. And maybe I haven't gone this week. Maybe they were coming, but the lockers obviously take a little more planning than shipping an Echo display. So that was a little bit of a surprise to see that one already up and running. So
yeah, no, it is interesting for sure. And again, I guess this will obviously, we should probably give them some time. It can't be an easy task announcing the takeover Monday and then promising to slash prices across the field on Monday. Like you said, maybe in a month's time, they may have, have had time to make much more of the changes they're looking for. I guess it depends what sort of target market they're after. They're obviously trying to make the Whole Foods seem more, reasonable to more people, make it more affordable to more people on the staple products that we mentioned. I guess time will tell as to whether they'll actually get to do that. I do see the long-term game is that Whole Foods is going to be the place to go for convenience. The sort of order it online beforehand, pick it up in the car park job. There's a lot of stuff which we expect Amazon to do. Almost like you tell Amazon your license plate on the car, and as you pull into the car park, it gets the order ready and someone brings it out to you. You expect this sort of innovation from them.
So they maybe can take those electric charging stalls and turn them into pickup stalls.
Or big petrol V8 engine stalls. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. What do you mean V8? V10.
Yeah, V10 priority parking. Yeah.
Priority. No, clearly. And they did say that they were working on some things with Prime, Prime members to be able to do things. And the entire integration of ordering online, being able to pick it up like you just mentioned, or possibly having the local stores do the delivery. Because right now Whole Foods still uses Instacart for most of its deliveries. So all that is changing. And let's also be mindful of the fact that we're talking September now. Amazon has other bigger fish to fry over the next 3 months, which sure, they're going to work on Whole Foods, but there's that Christmas holiday season coming that is kind of sort of important to them. And I would really expect that the bigger integrations, the bigger news as far as Whole Foods and Amazon is concerned is going to happen mostly after the holiday season. So, maybe end of January, beginning of February, I think when we're going to see more of the new innovations and stuff come out.
Indeed, we will keep our eye on and see what happens there. Now, next up, we've got eBay Motors adds online repair manuals for parts and accessories. This seems like a great thing. Am I?
Yeah, it is, because some of these manuals can be pretty expensive, and if you go to a bookstore, or you have to go find them online and buy them. It is a subscription-based service. They showed in the image that they provided, they showed a tablet with it. So I don't know if it's a PDF based. If it was PDF based, they wouldn't be able to control the subscription as easily. So I assume it must be somehow integrated in some scheme that allows them to control the subscription, so people couldn't copy it easily. So we'll have to see. I have not tried it. Even so, I'm in the automotive sales business on eBay a bit. I don't actually tinker on my cars. I don't have time for that. So, but they definitely and potentially it'll be able to provide manuals for older cars that may be harder to find. They did not provide pricing, so my assumption is that there's some variable in that depending on the vehicle and the source they're getting the information from. But definitely it's a step, another step in the right direction. It is eBay Motors only. There was no indication whether they would roll this out on international sites, but clearly if this works, I would think we would see that in the UK or Europe sometime in the near future as well.
Yeah, no, it sounds again, it's a nice thing for eBay to add to their sort of to their library of things for eBay Motors. And like you said, trying to track down some of the manuals, especially, I don't know if you have the same over there in the US. Over here we have like the Haynes manual. They're sort of like the manufacturer of these car manuals and stuff. And yeah, like I said, like
it's Chilton here in the US. That's the big one, if I recall.
Yeah, and they're not cheap. You're not cheap to get hold of. And if you just need to do a quick thing, it's it would be quite an outlay. So yeah, fair play for me.
I remember when I used to go into bookstores. I remember seeing people go through these manuals and kind of look at what it's and try to write down.
Nowadays, you're taking pictures on your phone, aren't you? Yeah, got that one. Got that one.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So next up, we've got this interesting story on the market opportunity seen in Chinese men's grooming. Now, this story actually talks about specifically Chinese men's grooming, but it turns out men's grooming globally is an increasing market. Now, whilst we're maybe not seeing the same growth that China is seeing, we are definitely seeing much more male beauty and health and beauty products aimed at the marketplace. Like right now, L'Oreal for men is absolutely killing it here in the UK. And it's funny because, again, my sister works for a huge company, global company, in part of their marketing department. And she used to, she was like involved in marketing, as I was saying. And we had this discussion once whilst I was stood in a Boots, which is like a chemist pharmacy thing here in the UK, and almost like a Walgreens if you're in the US. And I was like sending her pictures of the display stand for L'Oreal for men and sort of saying, I don't know why, but I want to buy this because it's just like manly colors. It's like charcoal, smell like petrol and all this. And it was very much a very male marketed thing, surrounded by lots of pretty flowers and nice smelling stuff. And I was like, L'Oreal for men have really nailed down their target market for men here. And then I looked for like other men's products, and it was all very boring and very bland, and it just sort of melted in with everything else. And it was interesting that L'Oreal for men have spotted this male opportunity, and that then comes about with the story this week about Chinese men's grooming products. And it's actually shown that the average Chinese men will now spend 24 minutes a day grooming, which is a huge increase. And again, it's an industry which has largely been neglected until now, other than the likes of hair care and like gel for hair and stuff, which has been around for years. actual like male moisturizers and stuff like that is becoming a very, very serious market opportunity for a lot of people. And that's the thing, is like, if you're in this industry, that is an opportunity which we've highlighted, and obviously other people have highlighted as well, which I would be pursuing if I was in that industry for sure.
Well, I've seen over the last few years, you know, this increase in these in the shaving clubs and stuff.
But, Dollar Shave Club, I love their marketing.
Yeah. But that's, you know, the basics. But, you know, I think you're absolutely right when it comes to a lot of other products. I mean, when somebody opens up an e-commerce site today, it's mostly always going to be aimed at women. I did look at that 24-minute grooming per day. I'm not sure what they include in that 24 minutes. I was trying to figure out, well, do I spend 24 minutes? I haven't shaved.
I can literally get up and leave the house within 20 minutes. So I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that time.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the target market, as you can tell.
I must not be the target market either. But, you know, there's a tremendous amount of, you know, rebranding of existing products going on. I mean, I remember a friend of mine told me some years back, you know, here in the U.S. we have Coke Zero, which I'm not sure that it exists like that. Okay. Well, Diet Coke is aimed at women because the word diet is more how women look at it. And Coke Zero was aimed at men. And while there was a slight taste difference, the marketing was the real key between the two things. You know, it's, you know, but you go like, why would they create two zero-calorie products? And it was basically because one was predominantly aimed at men and one is predominantly aimed at women. So now you can look at this particular situation, and I've seen this with Dove here. They're really pushing a lot of men's products, and I'm just wondering, well, is the moisturizer in that Dove really that different? You know, maybe there's some different perfumes in it. You know,
yeah, exactly. It smells like wood and chainsaws, and not, you know, lavender. You know.
And so I think what these companies are starting to realize, like, well, we're not going to just put out one moisturizer and say this is a moisturizer for family. We're going to start target marketing. And so this is I think there's a great opportunity here. You know, it's like, I know, for example, there are shampoos that I like that no one else in the house likes, you know. So it's
yeah, absolutely. I don't want to smell like a goji berry, but you know,
exactly.
I know exactly what you mean.
So I think that for everybody that's in this kind of beauty business, you know, that there might be something to it, because obviously we've seen some mergers of large e-commerce giants, and I think most of them are really predominantly women-oriented businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, is like I just said, like right now, I'm not an expert, and like I said, I'm definitely not their target market. But when I go out into real world shops, it is a rarity. But like I said, for me, the only person who was sort of doing it well was L'Oreal for Men. And then when you talk about shampoo, there's I think it's a German company actually. They do the caffeine shampoo. But it has like the black and the red top on it, and again, it's those very masculine colors. But I find it fascinating what you're saying about Coke Zero, and it makes total sense. It's, again, the black label, black and red branding, not gray. And over here, Diet Coke had they did a marketing campaign years ago which just stuck, called the Diet Coke break, and it was basically women in an office perving on a builder out of a window and sharing a Diet Coke. It was all very female targeted. So Coke Zero makes
and Coke Zero is a heavy sponsor of NASCAR. You know,
of course,
a heavy sponsor of NASCAR.
But then you flip it around,
male target audience.
You've got Diet Pepsi, and then you've got Pepsi Max, and again, it's the same thing. Yeah. Max is such a strong max power word. Same thing. It's fascinating. So again, I would expect, as Richard very quickly and brilliantly pointed out there, men's grooming is going to go that very similar way. These products, like we said, from L'Oreal and from Dove and from a handful of others, are going to start targeting men, specifically men, with some products which, you know, may have come out of the same tub, and they'll just put a new label on it. You know, and put some smelly stuff in it. Smell like fresh grass or something, you know. Smell like Castrol GTX, you know, the sort of men smells. Yeah, no, it is interesting to see for sure. So again, huge opportunity in men's grooming. They said Chinese men's grooming. I think it'll be global men's grooming before long.
Yeah, I think so too.
I
think that story was. I think there was a lot more to that story. It was just, I mean, yes, the story was initially a Chinese market, but I think the whole global market is.
I definitely think so, and I think social media is a huge reason for this. Men, women have already been with women's magazines and stuff like that. They've already been predisposed to care about what they look like, and now men are getting the same thing through social media, through Instagram, Facebook. You can't avoid it anymore. And you see, good-looking man with six-pack and all the rest of it, and you're like, I want to look like him. And it's that sort of men are starting to give more of a damn about what they actually look like. Most men, Richard, most men. Yeah. Me and you will just be sat on a beach drinking beer somewhere. It's all good. Like we said, not the target market.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Etsy introduces new listing pages and a Labor Day sale. What's going on with Etsy?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing small improvements. But one of the things they did with the listing pages is they took away the tabs. They basically said, well, the tabs were sort of hiding information, was hard to find. Apparently, they also felt it wasn't indexed as well on Google and other searches. So they made it more of a flat listing page, kind of the way eBay's listing pages, and quite frankly, how everybody else really. I mean, I think people are walking away from tabs and moving away from tabs. They are, it's nice. They look organized, but especially with the different size screens and as much of responsive adjustments you make to it, they sometimes come out just ugly. And by just making a straight one pager, it just makes it simpler. What this does do, apparently, for some sellers, which there's always something to complain when these things happen, is the way their descriptions were designed that kind of screwed them up, and they had to go back because it's sort of like now put everything on the same page twice. Just an adjustment people have to make. It's not a big deal. Just takes a little time to fix it. I think it's a good idea. They're clearly trying to, figure out ways, how can we get more traffic to the site cheaply? I mean, that's, and that's good. The Labor Day sale takes, I think they've had other sort of promotions like this before, but because of all the adjustments they made with coupons and discounts that people can do, they created sort of a landing page where now if you're, using these type of promotions, your products, your listings will end up on there. And we have to look at it this way. It's like, when we talk about marketplaces, we often think of eBay with all the gazillion listings. Etsy doesn't have that huge listing number that eBay has. So for them, they can still do more targeted stuff and encompass everybody to some extent, because they're just not that big. And it's little things. It's stuff that probably doesn't cost a whole lot to do. I would have liked to seen the Labor Day sale go into outside marketing, not just on the website marketing. But then again, they already said they weren't going to do any real branding expenditures this year. So, and maybe this is sort of a test for them to see how this works. And if it works well, then maybe do something after all for the Christmas or holiday season. I think the surprising profit last quarter maybe created some thought that maybe they will try to do more with branding. I don't know, we'll see. There's lots of stuff that's still up in the air with Etsy as far as the future is concerned, but both of them, they're good directions, and even if they're small steps, but they're the right steps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I quite like all the stuff that's coming out from Etsy recently has been very positive ever since the news of them sacking like 24% of the workforce, largely based in the business development and marketing piece, which just screamed it's getting ready for sale. But I mean, since then, all the stuff seems to have been pretty good news. They've been working on, like I said, the listing pieces, and it all just seems to be, at the minute, to be very positive news from Etsy.
It's probably really all catch-up stuff for them at the moment because, they were more worried about how green are our offices in Brooklyn versus how much traffic do we bring to the website, you know, and having a more business look at their business is probably good for them in the long term, regardless of what the future of Etsy holds, whether they stay by themselves or whether they become part of another company or enterprise. So either way, it's good for sellers. You know, there's always going to be some people say, oh, we don't like it. It's the same thing. We've heard this for 25 years. You know, there's people that probably want to go back to eBay like, you know, year one. You know, just things move on. And so at least Etsy has realized, hey, these are the problems we have. This is what we need to fix. This is what we need to just get on board with what's going on today, and then we'll see what the phase 2 is, you know. So it's good news.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so. So moving on, we now have ARCore, the new augmented reality experience for Android. Now, this is, again, this is like a future piece. This is new technology, augmented reality. It's been around. It has been around before. I mean, I remember back about 6 or so years ago, maybe even longer, on the Apple Marketplace, they had an app called All Around Me or something, and you'd be able to highlight like ATMs and turn the camera on, and it would show you which way to walk on your little map. So augmented reality, whilst you know, seeming to be new right now, has been around for a while, but I think the new exciting developments are still yet to come. We talk about, obviously, Pokemon Go was a big phenomenon last year, and it has died down a little bit now. I mean, it seems to be making a little bit of a resurgence with some new releases it's doing. But largely, that phenomenon of Pokemon Go for gaming and that augmented reality, having little things on your desk or wherever you are in the world using your camera, it became a bit of it was a novelty at the time. And I think now that ARCore, which again, I believe it's owned by Google, is like a Google company, part of their development team.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, it definitely appears that way. ARCore is basically the new version, the new development of augmented reality, and how this is going to be sort of the fundamentally built into smartphone technology going forward, and the capabilities of it are going to be much greater than what we've ever experienced before.
Well, it's the iOS. I'm sorry, not iOS. It's the OS integration that's required to make this go forward. You know? Exactly.
And ARCore is the Android version. I believe Apple are working on ARKit, which we're expecting to hear a little bit more about next week at the Apple conference. But yeah, ARCore, it's from Android, from the Google Labs, and yeah, I think, again, if you check out the link, by the way, all the links, as always, everything we talk about are in the description down below. Check out that link. There is links there to Google's pages on ARCore and what they are working with, and what they're looking at the capabilities of doing. The concept is basically ARCore will be, as Richard very rightly said, will be built into the OS, the operating system of smartphones, and that will then allow developers basically to go wild with how they can bring augmented reality much more to life, and much more, hopefully, to much more use in your everyday world. So again, ARCore, interesting to see what they come out with, and you can guarantee ARKit is going to be the Apple version and very similar.
Yeah.
So on that, okay, sticking on the technology news, we've got some new AI tech by Huawei for smartphones, which could advance e-commerce. Richard, this was a news story that went live today, wasn't it? So what's going on there?
Yeah, I added it to our agenda because of the ARCore story, because Huawei, however it's pronounced.
It's a funny one. I would put it Huawei, but I could be way off.
I don't know that.
To a Mancunian for advice on pronunciation.
Yeah, and I'm a German. I speak English with a German accent, so who knows? Don't ask me for advice either. Yeah, so the company has introduced this new processor. I think it's called the Kirin 970, and it has stuff built into it that effectively makes the processing of augmented reality or VR or AI, all these type of things much better, you know. And so we are going to, you know, you're going to need the power on the phones to be able to handle the OS upgrades that Android and that that Apple are going to do. Obviously, Apple has the advantage that if they do an upgrade to an OS, they can put the hardware with it. You know, when it comes to Android, the variety of hardware that can run things is you know, the variety of hardware that's available is like this huge. You know, so only the top end is going to be able to take advantage of really the advances that the folks at Google are coming up with. But all of that is going to find its way into e-commerce in some form or fashion. Sure, it's going to be used for a lot of games and you know and maybe even some mapping and other areas like that. But at the end of the day, with all of these things, they do make it into e-commerce. You know, let's look at eBay, for example. They are doing image search. ASOS, I'm correct, that's the name of the company, and that's a UK-based fashion retailer that sells globally now. They've added image search to their app. You know, all of these, you know, and all of this is then augmented or to, you know, predict to artificial intelligence. What is it you're really looking for? What is it you want to find? You know, and Walmart and Google are collaborating. So everybody is working on how to move from, you know, the flat, simple search where you typed in boots and you got 5 million results into something that actually is what you're looking for. And that's going to involve a lot of visuals. It's going to involve a lot of understanding of what you like and what you don't like. And that's where all this technology is going to come into play. And what I find interesting with you know, yeah, Apple is supposed to release their version, but there hasn't been a whole lot, and I think you're writing a piece on it. There hasn't been a whole lot of huge innovation by Apple. So Samsung has been sort of stalled a little bit because they had the Note 7 debacle. You know, that didn't help. And so here comes a company, and I don't want to say that they're not a small company. They're the largest telecommunications equipment manufacturer. We think, you know, just
yeah, they're huge. They've just literally flown under the radar for the past 5-10 years. But
yeah, and they've been around for much longer than that. But it's just a Chinese company that just ballooned, you know, and so here's somebody completely new, effectively, to the consumer smartphone market, saying, "Hey, look what we're producing," and they might push this envelope to a point that could be pretty interesting. And they already have a hook in with Amazon because they added early in the year to their current model Alexa. Granted, a lot of people are adding Alexa, but it's just, you know, Amazon is selling the current model on their website, you know, with Alexa integration. And you know, and Amazon's sort of recent take on smartphones has been they pick certain manufacturer brand and put stuff on those phones, bloatware, if you want to call it that, and sell it under the Amazon, not under the Amazon name, but sell on the Amazon website and have it already basically ready to integrate with the rest of the ecosystem there. And this could go somewhere. You know, there's definitely there's a lot of potential here, and I think we're just at the beginning of how e-commerce is going to change over the next 5 years.
Absolutely, and I think you've absolutely nailed it with voice commerce and or v-commerce, as we sort of are branding it right now. Yeah, I just, you know, I take for granted, like, I have obviously the Google Assistant on my phone, and if I'm driving, it's just a case of, you know, I might just be, okay, Google, you know, play this. Oh, I'm just going to kick off, stop. And but I could say to, like, navigate me to here, navigate me to there, you know, and all of a sudden, if it was like, okay, secret word, buy me this, and then it knows what I've bought previously, the type of brand, whatever, all of a sudden, voice commerce, you don't even need a screen anymore. You can just tell this thing what it is that you want to buy. And, you know, if it has the AI to be able to deduct what it is you mean, all of a sudden, that's just mind-blowing. And I do generally think that's the direction that we're heading.
Well, and in there, this was released in Berlin this weekend at IFA, International Funkausstellung, which is the sort of a CES here of Europe. CES is the Consumer Electronics Show in the United States. That's sort of the same realm. And you know, they talked about how their phone and how the technology interacts also with cloud AI. So it's, you know, it's unique. So kind of both components to it. You know, one of the issues with phones is battery life. So you can't have everything done on the phone. You might be able to build a phone that could do almost everything nowadays, but your battery life would be next to nothing.
Yeah.
So there's always that that balance that has to be found. So whatever you can pre-process and then send that data over to the cloud, and then finish up the processing or finishing up the searching. And I don't want to get into another topic here, but it almost makes me believe that the future of e-commerce is really marketplaces. And one great example, look there, is China, where basically everything runs through a couple of marketplaces. Most Chinese companies don't even run their own web stores anymore. They run it through these marketplaces because the technology is now just bringing things to a level that's very, very hard to do on a Magento, on a Shopify, or something like that. But we'll talk about that some other time. But that don't want to get too much off topic here. It's going to be interesting over the next 5 years what we're going to see. I believe we're changing the way we shop.
Absolutely. I don't think we ever have stopped changing. You think about how it's changed in the past 10 years. It's obviously, we started off with desktops, then we moved to laptops and tablets, and now it's mobile phones, and now we could be moving to voice, no screen at all. It's the e-commerce is speeding up, but constantly evolving, and those who win are those who evolve quickest. There's a Darwin line in there somewhere, but I'm not going there.
Yeah. But understanding, you guys went into the third, third channel, third generation. That's everything is now a new generation. And that's
it. The third generation, like we sort of coined that term 4 years ago. Pretty much everyone is now largely third generation. Still a couple of second generation providers out there who do good things, but yeah, largely this on demand, this software as a service where you have ultimate control is much more common than it ever has been before.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the next thing? Who knows? Anyway, with that said, interesting stuff there from Huawei, one to keep an eye on. And like I said, there is a story on Apple coming out this week in preparation for the Apple conference next week. Because me personally, as the one who wrote the article, I'm scared Apple is going to get left behind. That may sound ridiculous for such a big company, but we've just not seen innovation from them since Steve Jobs sadly passed away.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're sitting on a lot of cash and they can get away with a lot of things. I just don't think
they're sat on a war chest, which they think makes them untouchable. Which maybe they're right, but they're no longer the global lead in innovation and smartphone or computing technology. And I think they just need that one more thing. Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll see. But in the past few years, we've had nothing to go off.
Right.
Anyway, next up, we've got eBay UK updates to contact and links policy for listings. Now, if you haven't seen this, again, I believe eBay UK announced this back in their spring update around April time. And they said back then it would be coming in October, and that means you've got about 3 or 4 weeks left before this comes in. And eBay's basically changing the rules on what links and what contact information you can have on your eBay listings. So no longer can you have phone numbers or email addresses on your eBay listings. You can only have that information in your business seller information. And as far as links go, you cannot have links to your own website, obviously, but you can no longer link to certain social medias, which previously were allowed. And yeah, they really are clamping down. Now, this is potentially a good thing. It keeps, or what eBay is trying to do is keep the transaction within eBay walls. Now, that you may think is eBay trying to plug the leak of people transacting off eBay, and I'm sure there's definitely an element of that there. If someone reached out to you and offered to transact off eBay so you didn't have to pay fees, you may do it. The downside of that is you are now no longer protected by, obviously, PayPal protection and eBay seller protection. So there is a good thing of keeping it on eBay. You are definitely more protected. eBay and PayPal are there for sellers. That is their new, their new thing is we are putting sellers first. But also, I think eBay are really trying to nurture and look after the whole system of the transaction, the whole customer journey. They'll be able to track Communication's much easier if it's all handled through messaging system. And the easiest way to do that is to stop you from allowing people to contact you off-site. I believe the US implemented this policy earlier on in the year.
Yes, and they was implemented early on in the year, and they also clamped down pretty quickly on the messaging. You know, even some of the more esoteric ways of trying to get direct communication through messaging, all of a sudden were being caught by eBay. So I'm sure that same algorithm they have in the US is available in the UK.
Copy and paste over to the UK.
So I think you're gonna, maybe they have to, make a few changes, like, we only use an OU and you guys use an OU,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Damn it. They spelt it wrong and got through the net.
So, but outside of that, it's coming in, and if you've been living in a caravan for the summer and getting ready for your winter sales, guess what? Better get your listings in order. You only got a few more weeks left.
That's it. And eBay are by far the most reasonable marketplace. We've said this before. Amazon will just, you wake up in the morning and she's divorced you. eBay, she'll give you warnings. She'll say, "Come on, honey, don't do this. This is not what we're supposed to be doing." She'll give you warnings, and they'll probably send you emails if you've got any listings which aren't in line. But if you break them, they'll probably pull the listings down. But if you continue to break them, you do risk account suspension. And for a lot of people watching this, that's probably going to be a large chunk of your online business. Certainly, a decent percentage of it. And if that's the case, you don't want to be having those headaches in October, November, December, where for most people, it's the time when they really make the money in the year. Yeah. So like Richard said, get things in line. You've got 3 weeks from now. I've left of September. Make it a priority is the best advice there.
Yeah.
Now, next up, we've got PayPal launches the new 2% cashback MasterCard. What's going on there?
Yeah, PayPal has had a relationship with a credit card before, which was actually based on a points system. So if you purchase something, you got points, and then you could go on their website and get something for those points. Kind of similar like how airline cards are, or how many other cards are set up.
All that sort of stuff.
Miles, exactly. So now they cashback cards are becoming pretty popular in the U.S. They've been around for a long time, but it's a good way for people to save. Depending where you go, you can sometimes find 2 or 3%, or most of them are more like around the 1%. They'll depend on sometimes. Some will say, well, it's only groceries. Some will say it's only on gas. And so PayPal said, here's 2% on everything. So whatever you buy, they'll give you an unlimited 2% cash back. And if you've used to have a PayPal debit card and you're one of those old accounts, you might remember that you used to have 1.5% cash back on those cards. And that was all scaled back to 1%. So here you can, get this credit card and double what you can get now through the debit card. And if you purchase a lot of your goods, I mean, through a credit card scheme, or through a credit card, not scheme, but through using a credit card, there can be a lot of savings in this. If you do $100,000 of purchases, I mean, that's $2,000. That's a mini vacation just for switching to a cashback card. Some people, like, if you work directly with vendors, sometimes they offer early pay 2% discounts. There's some companies, I remember when we used to run a big warehouse operation, we would take 2% discounts all the time because it made a huge difference. So it doesn't sound like much, but when you run a business and you run some volume, difference. So this is an interesting offer. Now, one caveat to this, it's not a business credit card technically. It is a personal credit card. It's based on your personal credit history, but it is tied to your PayPal account, and you can tie it to your business account. So that's the one downside if you're running a corporation and you want to keep the walls separate financially between personal and corporate stuff. You do become personally liable for the charges. Some people that incorporate don't like doing that. That was one of the advantages of the debit card, for example, because it was actually a business debit card, and being a debit card, there's no liability there effectively for the user. But still, I would look at it. It's definitely worth. 2% is 2%. I mean, I can tell you,
it goes down free
money. Yeah, free money is free money, and and it's a method. I'm not sure how popular. I don't remember ever seeing that much in Europe, having these kind of cashback cards. I know here in the U.S. we're a lot more used to using credit cards than maybe in Europe, and maybe it'll find its way.
There's a few like cashback websites, which again some people love. Other people, the majority of people just don't use them. They see them as an inconvenience. Cashback cards, I would say I've heard of a couple that are out there, but again, there's not many. For the majority that I know, you've got the Air Miles one. So British Airways do a big one. I personally have a Virgin one. And Tesco have a credit where you can get club card points for Tesco. They seem to be the major ones. It all seems to be either like Air Miles or some other sort of point system rather than cashback.
Amazon's
just not huge here for whatever reason.
Amazon, I mean, they own branded a credit card, which is through the same financial institution, Synchrony, I believe. They're offering a 5% discount if you buy something using it. So I mean, you can. There's a tremendous amount of savings for doing. One of the things in the way what a lot of these card issues, or what we call affinity cards, the ones that tie directly to a specific brand of store. What they have found is by offering this cashback or extra discount, people put balances on them, and then obviously they hit them up with a high percentage on the interest rate. So they kind of make this up pretty quickly if you don't pay it off, which lots of people don't pay off. That's obviously the downside of using a credit card. So
I think that's it. I think if you're largely good with money management, you've got nothing to. You can actually gain quite a lot from credit cards. You can sort of take the benefits and not fall into the trap. However, it is quite sad that the people who are paying for your rewards are the ones who are terrible at managing money and end up owing more than what they can pay. It's a bit of a sad spiral, but it is what it is. If you can't manage your finances and credit cards, you should probably stay clear of. However, I'm not a financial advisor, and I would not be giving you financial advice.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that said, I'm going to quickly move on to a couple of the guest posts that we've had this week. Again, all the links are down below in the description. First one was from Ben Whitaker, who director of Bstock Solutions. He wrote a really nice piece about how you can leverage B2B liquidation marketplace, such as Bstock Solutions, to basically free up money that is tied up in either returns that are you can no longer sell through your main channels, or maybe just slow moving stock which you want to get rid of in order to make way for new stock and free up that capital to purchase new things. Fantastic article, and actually talks a lot about how the B2B marketplace works in an auction style. It's not a race to the bottom, but rather a race upwards. So again, it's an interesting way. If ever you're looking for a sort of liquidation solution, Bstock Solutions seems like a good place to certainly have a look at. And again, thanks to Ben for sharing that insight. Yeah, sure. Go
add one thing to it. Most major department stores, and I'm sure same thing's true in Europe, but I know here in the United States, when they take in returns, that all goes to liquidators. Very few of returns go back on the shelf. They literally have to be in perfect condition for them to put them back on the shelf, or they may keep some items as open box items for, and have them on the table here and there. But the vast majority of return goods, especially after Christmas, goes to liquidators. And there's even I read something, and I need to dig this up and maybe write a story on it, about how there's almost like a second season for buying return goods, like at the end of January, beginning of February, as these liquidators get the stock from the Christmas time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I again used to in my past worked for a huge consumer electronics refurbishment company. Basically, every time either some of the large supermarkets, some large consumer electronic stores took returns, they came straight to us. They didn't do anything with it. We checked them, repaired them if necessary. Largely, they were just unwanted. Hadn't even been turned off. Sort of cellophane around the frame, around the bezel. It's like, this is technically a new product, but legally cannot be sold as new. So yeah, absolutely, it's an avenue which a lot of the big guys use, absolutely, and one which can be, let's say, if the big guys are doing it, chances are there's a good reason why they're doing it. The next story was from Victoria Green, who is an e-commerce marketing consultant based in Chicago. She reached out and had this story about basically cross-border trade, selling without borders, and the best ways to grow your sales internationally. Basically, it was a great post for anyone who hasn't considered cross-border trade or selling overseas. And this article tells you basically the reasons why you would want to do it, and also some great tips on planning and the rollout of that strategy. So again, hat tip to Victoria for sending that over. I thought it was a great article, and I'm sure you guys will find it useful as well.
Absolutely. Great.
Now, on to the big news of the week. Obviously, well, I mean, it's of this week, it's of last week, of the week before, and that's Hurricane Harvey and the devastation it's caused in Houston, and maybe some surrounding areas of Texas as well. It's there's a couple of news points here, Richard, but again, the main one, that obviously being on an e-commerce and sort of slant, we have to look at the impacts of disasters, natural disasters, on e-commerce businesses. So what's the thoughts on this, Richard?
Well, Harvey it seemed to be a bit of a surprise. It was sort of, sometimes these hurricanes all of a sudden blow up very quickly in the last couple days or so, and I think that was the case with Harvey. On top of that, it hit a low-lying area. It hit an area where there's an awful lot of clay, dirt, which means the flooding doesn't go back or recede as quickly. So what we saw on TV was a lot worse because of lack of time to plan for it, because of just other factors that came into play, and maybe if you were in Florida or in California, what is Harvey? It doesn't impact me. Well, the fact is, Texas is a huge route along the southern part of the United States for logistics. So you have something like Harvey happen. It interrupts everything. UPS, all the logistics companies have to move, equipment. Everybody takes the equipment out of the area and puts it where it's safe so they can, use it. It also overloads the system as far as, entry points. If you have a package you ship from Florida, it needs to go to California. Well, if the logistics system in Texas is currently interrupted, then it's going to sit in Florida in a warehouse. UPS especially uses a lot of trains. The train shut down, I believe, for 2 days through Texas. And just for I remember when there was a strike in Long Beach 16 years ago, because I was working for another company. We had containers out there, and they said for every day the strike went on, it would take 3 days of it. Once they got back to work, 3 days to catch up. So every day that something is shut down, it just expands dramatically, and it's you can't just all of a sudden say, oh, we're going to drive the trucks through Ohio. Yeah, you can do that, but that requires moving equipment. That requires all kinds. It's just not easy to do, and so when it comes to a disaster like this, there's a huge human cost, which is what you see on television, and everybody is, I think everybody's been doing a pretty good job of donating money, and you see all the large corporations doing money donations wherever you go. People are asking for money to give to the Red Cross, so this is all fantastic. I think Americans really do step up in natural disasters, but it's when you're running a business, there are other factors that are not on the news and that you have to consider, communicating with your customers, what's going on, because they may say, well, where's my package? Because they don't understand logistics, and so it's these type of things that you have to consider. When we have a hurricane come here to Florida, we're in a peninsula, we're kind of so out of the way, and it impacts us. But when a hurricane hits through the Gulf, or if it were to hit on the East Coast and let's say like Sandy, like New Jersey, that has impact on tremendous amount of other areas, well beyond where the hurricane impacts are. Which I'm going to write a story this week, since unfortunately Hurricane Irma is coming potentially our way here in Florida, about disaster preparedness for your business. There's a lot of things to consider. I think you and I had a little bit of a discussion the other day,
Yep.
and you go like, wow, I didn't even think about that. You know, it's like it's the little things that can make a huge difference to recover from a disaster, because, you know, your house might be fine, your warehouse might be fine, but your communications are down or limited. How do you deal with it? You know, and you have customers going like, what's going on? You know,
yeah,
it's just very difficult.
The same. It's exactly. And I will be doing a video over on my YouTube channel this week about sort of preparing your e-commerce business for disasters. I mean, we're very fortunate here in the UK. We don't really get, touch wood, anything along those lines, really. You know, I can't remember the last time we had a tornado.
But you have snow emergencies occasionally, which can impact.
Even then, I mean, a snow emergency to us, I remember when Manchester Airport shut because we had an inch of snowfall. Yeah.
1 inch.
We're the world's laughing stock when it comes to being prepared for snow. See Canada looking at us going, what the hell are you guys doing?
What's an inch?
Call that snow? So yeah, I mean, there was, I think it was 2010, we got hit big. I think there was I think there was at least 2 or 3 foot that had dropped over a couple of days. That stopped everything. And like I said, I was working for electronics, the same electronics e-commerce guys at the time. I remember being on the phone and this happened on, I think, the 2nd and 3rd of December, worst time ever. You know, literally just after Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And I was on the phone to the courier guys going, you know, is there any chance you guys are going to be able to do a pickup today? And they went, our trucks can't even get out of the depot. You know, they're just sat there spinning tires. You know, chains? No, they don't have snow chains, anything like that. We're just so not prepared for it. So luckily 2010 was the last time we had anything like that. But yeah, it's something which, as a business owner, you can often overlook completely. I mean, like I said, we had that chat the other day, Richard, and thank you for that, because a lot of that stuff will be going in the YouTube video, stuff which I hadn't even thought about. But I guess living in Florida, this is, I won't say bread and butter to you, but it's certainly much more an every year awareness.
You think about it, yeah.
Yeah, you're aware of it every year of you know, what potentially could happen. Over here, I'm sort of just blissfully ignorant about the whole thing.
But you know, I will say this: like I remember some years back when I think there was a really big snow storm in most of Europe, which might have not impacted the UK as much. And I had a lot of packages that just for weeks just didn't go anywhere. They were stuck in Paris or whatever the depots were from, you know, various places, because they couldn't go. You know, once it's shut down for a couple of days, you know, the routes are shut down. It just takes a long time to get going. And I remember one shipment to Latvia, I think it took 6 weeks. You know, and that was an express mail shipment.
Yeah,
should have been there
Latvia can get a lot of snow as well. Latvia can get snow.
Yeah, so but it started out with the fact that it was stuck in Paris, if I remember right, that particular one, and then just wouldn't, you know. Then that's kind of the central part of Europe got inundated with snow, and then I guess it moved. Then parts of the eastern part, it just became a mess after mess after mess, you know. And so it's good to have a plan of what to do, and to not live with your head in the sand, that if it happens somewhere, how it might impact you, especially if you do global shipping, and if it impacts some areas that are part of hubs. You know, UPS can't fly planes. FedEx can't fly planes. You know, on international shipments if there's snow in Memphis or snow in Louisville. You know, it's just there's only so much they can do. And,
I mean, one again, which I totally overlooked was, you know, what if your fulfillment, if you're using FBA, what if your fulfillment center's in that city? You might be on the other side of the country, but if for whatever reason you've got stock in that fulfillment center, guess what? That's not going out.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Exactly. So there's a lot of things to consider. You know, and with hurricanes, we're at least quote unquote typically fortunate enough that you have sort of a 1 week plan. You get time to do it. I mean, I went to Costco here yesterday, and there's no water to be found. I'm like, okay, it's what
people heard about Irma already.
Yeah, people heard about Irma already, you know. So, but it's the same kind of pre-planning you need to do for your business, and you should have a disaster plan of some kind or another. And I think between your video and what I'm going to write, I think we're going to maybe educate some people on this and how to think outside the box, you know. And just because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean it won't. And if you don't have a plan, you know,
well, I think the definition exactly of the perfect disaster plan is the one that you have but never have to use.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case exactly. You know, you hope that you'll never have to use it, but worst case scenario, you've got something there, and you know that the business will survive, given worst case scenario for sure.
Exactly.
I was just having flashbacks quietly about how many children's Christmases I ruined back in 2010. Me personally, apparently, you know, but, because, you know, I wasn't out, you know, hijacking the Royal Mail truck, driving it down these snow-drifted roads. Yeah, no, it's, you know, even just things like being able to put banners on websites and just sort of say, due to, you know, the weather circumstances, expect delays, you know, even just something as simple as that can pre-warn customers. Even setting up autoresponders after every order saying, just so you know, as you are hopefully aware, there's a, you know, look out the window, there's some weather going on. There will be some delays. But again, so...
Well, but you know, here in the US, the point is, yeah, look out the window and something in California, well, it's sunny here. Like, you know.
That'd be me, yeah. 25 degrees and sunny, why am I not getting my things?
And just to follow up a little bit, I mean, on the hurricane story, Etsy, you know, among all the people, I mean, virtually everybody stepped up with some money and some donations. And Etsy also did something a little different. They went with Surf, which is an organization, Surf Plus, I mean, it's an organization that helps artists that are, you know, impacted by various, I don't know, disasters and other potentially life or income issues. And so they hooked up with them to identify people that are making a living on Etsy that are in Houston or in the Texas area, and to help those folks actually with money, not just, hey, we're going to help you with your with your feedback scores like eBay and others are doing, but actually to be able to provide them with some actual relief. So the story is a very short one, but it has all the links to all the relevant parts of Surf Plus that are and what they do and how they help those people, because let's face it, most artists, you know, they're not in the business of selling bulk, you know, and if they've lost most likely they have all their goods at their house, and if their house is gone, their stock is gone, and they have to make their own stock, you know, if you want to look at it from a simplistic point of view, you know. And that can have, you know, artists can be really tremendously impacted by negatively impacted by such you know, natural disasters, and so they are doing a bit of an outreach and trying to help the artist community get through this time. So I think it was kind of a feel-good story.
It's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to end on. And again, it's you know, the world is a bit of a funny place right now, getting a little bit deep. Obviously, with the stuff going on, not only still in the Middle East, but in, you know, with North Korea and what's going on there. Obviously, you've got the issues going on in, I'm not sure if they're still going on in Charlottesville with, you know, back home in the US. We've got issues here in the UK. But it's always at times of disaster and emergency when you really see people pull together in the best possible way. Obviously, in the Manchester bombing here, we saw it massively. Literally, you know, people arm in arm who previously probably wouldn't have, you know, said hello to each other walking down the street. And the same with now in Houston. It's fantastic. You know,
you mean Londoners would have talked to Manchester?
Well, you know, let's not go too far, Richard. You know, there's some things which will never happen. No, London was fantastic. The whole of Europe was fantastic. But I mean, even now, I've got friends, you know, and friends of friends, obviously from when I used to live in LA, who've driven from LA in trucks to Texas to just try and help in whatever way they can. I think it's a fantastic thing to see. the world needs more of that than a lot of the hate which is going on. So yeah, on that good news story, that is, I say good news story, is the good out of bad, really. But yeah, that's what we're going to end on today. Again, I'll give you a quick rundown of the summary of the news. We had the Richard's first trip to Amazon-owned WholeFoods. eBay Motors adds online repair manuals for parts and accessories. The market opportunity in Chinese men's grooming. That still makes me smile, that one. It's like how it's so specific to Chinese, but I think it will, like we've said, it will be a global one for sure. Etsy introduced the new listing pages and their Labor Day sale. ARCore, the future of augmented reality on mobile phones. Obviously, ARKit for Apple as well. Huawei and their new AI technology utilizing cloud and on-device artificial intelligence, what that could mean for the future. And voice commerce, will that become a term? Me and Richard should maybe patent that one or trademark it. eBay UK updates contact and links policy for listings. Again, you've got about 3 weeks, guys, before October. Do not risk messing up your Christmas period by getting slapped on the wrist by eBay. PayPal launching a new 2% cashback MasterCard. We have the B2B liquidation marketplace article by Ben at Bstock Solutions, and Victoria Green writing about international sales and selling without borders, cross-border, the opportunity that you see there online. And finally, we talked about the impact of Hurricane Harvey on Houston, on Texas, the effect of e-commerce, logistics, deliveries. Again, goes without saying, but we'll say it anyway. Everyone's thoughts here at eSellerCafe. Thoughts go out to Houston if you've been, affected by the event. Honestly, there are no words. Just our thoughts are with you. And like we ended with, the resilience of humans in times of need is fantastic, and the way that everybody pulls together is something which, like we said, we should really see more of. So with that said, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you have any comments, questions about anything, you can either leave them underneath this video down below on the YouTube channel, or head over to eSellerCafe.com. Get involved there in the comments section underneath the articles. Either myself, Richard, or, of course, Matt will get back to you as soon as we can. We've got an interesting week coming up already. We've got some great articles lined up that will be coming, as well as any breaking news which happens as well. So do keep in touch. Again, do keep us in mind for your e-commerce news, and we'll be back with you, as always, next week, Monday, 4 o'clock in the UK, 11 o'clock Eastern, and 8 Pacific.
8 Pacific.
8 Pacific. God, that was difficult.
And we have no idea what it is. We have no idea what it is in Melbourne. So
somewhere in the middle, if you're in like Montana, I guess. And Australia, you're probably watching the replay. With that said, Richard, thank you so much as always for everything you've done this week. It's been a great week for news, and and thank you for joining us today. With that said, guys, enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you, Richard. And we will catch you either in the week, or we'll catch you here same time next week. See you then.
All right. See you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.